All right, I'm back. And so obviously I have the engine out on the E34 because I was just about to do a whole bunch of stuff to it. But in the last video, I promised you guys that I would do one more video in this whole series relaunch or whatever you want to call it series, where I talk about the two most commonly asked questions about the drivetrain in my E34. And those two questions are either what engine should you pick for your LS swap, or what engine did I pick for my LS swap? And surprisingly, those two answers are completely different stories. So I'll kind of talk through what I did first, and then after that I'll kind of make a general recommendation. And kind of a tangent, side note, self-promotion, whatever you want to call it, on my second channel I actually made a whole video about just these engines and what makes these engines special and all the cool technology and engineering that went into them. So if that's something that you're interested in, make sure you check that video out after you're done with this one. And so like I said, the question that I'm going to answer first is what engine I went with my drivetrain. So the bottom end of this engine is from a 2006 Escalade, which means this engine is a LQ9. And so the way that I typically think about these engines is that the LQ9 in my mind is basically like an Iron Block LS2. Well, I guess if they had made one, this would be what an Iron Block LS2 would look like. So the highlights of the bottom end of this engine is it is a 6-liter truck engine, so it is an Iron Block, and it's a Gen 3 engine, so no DOD or AFM. You don't have to worry about deleting any of that stuff. No variable valve timing either. But just like the LS2, it has the Gen 4 rods, and it also has the flat top pistons. So that's why in my mind I kind of call it an Iron Block LS2, because you get the rotating assembly from an LS2 in the stronger Iron Block. And that's kind of what makes the LQ9 special. There is an LQ4, which is used in pretty much everything else that has a 6-liter truck engine, but the LQ9 has the flat top pistons. It's the higher compression, higher output, higher performance version. So if you're looking for a 6-liter truck engine, the LQ9 is probably the way that you want to go. So if you just wanted to grab an LQ9 out of Escalade, throw it into your car, call it job done, I guess you could do that. That would be job done pretty easy. These are fairly capable engines. They make 360-ish horsepower out the box, but one of the best things about the LS engines is how modular they are. And so you really are kind of missing out if you don't at least take the opportunity to swap some parts around. And so, of course, my LQ9 is not stock. So with LSs, the number one thing that you will hear people talk about is the HDI upgrade or the heads cam intake upgrades. So that's pretty much the formula that I followed. So in terms of heads, what I have are heads from a 2013 Denali because the 823 cylinder heads are also shared with the LS3. And the LS3 cylinder heads, or some people call them the rectangle port cylinder heads, those are the best flowing factory cylinder heads that you can get on a LS. So if you're able to find them and throw them on your 6-liter, that's a huge performance boost. I also put dual valve springs in here, hardened pushrods, lifters from the Caddy racing program or the GM Performance Parts lifters. And then for the camshaft, I have a BTR Stage 4 PDS Cam. And yes, I know that's a blower cam. So before everybody comes for me, I do know that's a blower cam, and this engine is naturally aspirated. But I kind of subscribe to the same theory that Richard Holtner does, where I don't think there's a blower cam or a turbo cam. Basically, you just look at what the camshaft is doing, and then when you add boost to it, it's just going to do more of that. And so when you look at positive displacement cams, they tend to push the power way out at the end of the rev range. That's kind of the feeling that I'm looking for this engine. I want it to be more similar to, a European V8 where you get power way up high in the RPM range. And so it was kind of a purposeful decision to buy the wrong camshaft for this engine. Now, if it doesn't work out, I'll just swap it in the future, but that's the theory at the moment. In terms of intake manifold, this intake manifold is from a G8 GT, and so those cars either had 6 liters or I believe some of them had 6.2 liters, but it's the same exact intake manifold that's on the Corvette. And so this intake manifold flows really, really well. I know the last time I talked about this, everybody wanted to brigade me and say, why didn't I get the fast LSXR intake manifold? I mean, that intake manifold is great. It makes more power than this one, but it costs so much more than I paid for this intake manifold because I paid $75 for it, and the one from Fast, that one's like $1,200. And you guys will kind of see that throughout like all of the different builds I do, not just this one right here, but pretty much anytime I'm working on a car, I always run that like cost to performance analysis. And yes, that Fast LSXR intake manifold, like I said, it is better, but I don't know that 10 horsepower is worth $1,200 extra dollars. That's money that I could spend somewhere else on the engine to get, that 10 horsepower back. And so, yeah, that's pretty much just kind of like a brief overview of my engine. Like I said, this is not an engine that GM ever assembled in factory configuration. That's one of the best parts about the LS engine, is that, you know, you can mix and match pretty much all of the parts. But if you did basically just want to replicate this, but you didn't want to like turn wrenches or anything like that, you can actually buy these from the dealership. GM never actually put this engine configuration in a factory car, but they sell them from the parts counter as the LS364. Okay, I don't know why, but it's a LQ9 bottom end, and then it has the LS3 cylinder heads and intake, which is exactly what I have here. But if you do that, you know, you're, again, dealing with a dealership, and you're paying basically for somebody else to assemble your engine, when basically I put this together for way less than you would get when you go and buy it from the dealership. And so, kind of like I said in the intro, this is what I did, but my recommendation for what LS engine you should buy is a little bit different than what I did. If you are looking for a specific LS engine, I think you should look for the one I was originally looking for, which is the LY6. So the LY6 is basically the successor to this engine. It's a Gen 4 LS engine, and they come with LS3 cylinder heads from the factory, and that just saves you a whole lot of time. So to get these LS3 cylinder heads, I actually bought a whole nother car. I bought a 2013 Denali that had a bottom end knock, and I ended up buying that for like $400, and I took the cylinder heads off of it, and then I sold it back to the junkyard. That was a whole lot of like commotion to basically end up with something that I could have gotten in factory configuration. Now, I will admit the downside to the LY6 is that it has dished pistons. It doesn't have the flat top pistons like you see in the LQ9, so the compression ratio is a little bit lower. But if you are planning to boost your engine, you could just throw an LSA blower on it, because I think they have like 9.6 to 1 compression ratio, which is more boost friendly than the 10.5 to 1 compression ratio that you have going on here. All right, so I think that's pretty much all that I have to say about this engine for right now. Mostly because my ADHD won't allow me, and mostly because I'm kind of tired of just like talking about my car, and I'm ready to just like actually work on the car. So if that sounds like something that you want to see, make sure you subscribe, like, follow, do all that stuff, because right after this video cuts off, I'm going to start making the video where I'm putting the flywheel and clutch on the back of this engine. So if you want to be along for the ride, like I said, make sure you do all the stuff. And and also check out my TikTok, because I'm starting to post more on TikTok, because a lot of the times there's stuff that I do that doesn't warrant a whole 8-minute or 5-minute YouTube video, and I tend to post that type of stuff on my TikTok, which is Aperture Motorsports Plus. So yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. So I will see you guys in the next one.